In order to have the most controlled environment on Windows, you might want to install individual components for the Apache HTTP server, the MySQL database, and PHP. I'll start with showing you how to download and install Apache for Windows. You won't go to the Apache Foundation itself. Even though the Apache Foundation manages this software product, it does not provide a fully compiled installer for Windows. Instead, that's managed by an organization called the Apache Lounge. Before you work with Apache itself, make sure you have the VC11 redistributable installed from Microsoft. You can get that from the link here. It'll take you to a web page on Microsoft, and then you'll want to click Download and choose the x86 version. As I'll show you in a moment, we're going to be installing 32-bit versions of both Apache and PHP. To find out whether you already have that installed, you can go to your control panel to uninstall a program. Then go down to the Microsoft section and look for your redistributables. Most Windows installations will have at least a few. And you're looking for this one, the 2012 redistributable for x86, version 11.0. Once you have that installed, you're ready to install Apache. I mentioned that we're going to be using 32-bit versions of these products, not the 64-bit versions. That's because, as of the current date, the PHP version for 64 bits is still marked experimental. And to make sure we have the most stable environment, we have to match the Apache version and the PHP version together. We'll use 32-bit versions of both. So I'll be downloading this version. I'm using 2.4.10, but anything in the 2.4 series should work for you. Make sure that whatever you're using says Win32 and VC11. I've already downloaded this to my desktop, and I'm going to extract the contents to my desktop to get started. I'll double-click on the zip file, and then I'm going to drag the Apache 24 folder onto my desktop. It'll take a few moments to extract those files to the desktop. When the extraction is done, we'll be ready for the next steps, renaming the folder and placing it where we really want it to run. Once the extraction is complete, you can rename the folder. You don't have to do this, but I find it easier to refer to this as simply Apache. So I'll rename it, and then I'm going to move it to my C drive root. I'll go to the C drive and verify that the files are there. Next, before I start up Apache for the first time, I have to make some configuration changes to match the name of the folder I just created. I'll go to the conf folder. That's where all the configuration files are stored. And I'll open up the file httpd.conf. I use TextPad, but you should be able to use any text editor you like. The first change I'll make is to take care of the Apache 24 folder that I renamed to simply Apache. I'm going to do a search here for Apache 24 and show you that the server root is set to C:/Apache 24. I'll search again and show that the document root refers to this as well. There are actually quite a few references to this folder throughout the configuration file. So I'm going to do a search and replace. I'll select C:/Apache 24 and I'll copy it to my clipboard. Next, I'll go back up to the top of the file and place the cursor all the way up here. Then I'll do a search and replace. In TextPad, you do that through the menu, selecting Search and Replace, or pressing F8. If you're using a different text editor, follow whatever steps you need to. I'm finding Apache 24 and replacing it with Apache, and I'll click Replace All. It takes just a moment for that change to be made, and now I'm ready for the next step. Next, I'll search for a parameter named server name. By default, this is commented out with a hash mark. I'll delete the hash mark, and I'll change this to localhost, the reserved domain name for the local instance of Apache. And that's it. I'll save my changes and close the file. And now I'm ready to start up Apache for the first time. I'll go to a command prompt. On Windows 8, you can right-click on the lower left corner and choose Command Prompt, and on Windows 7, go to the Start menu and type CMD and press Enter. Next, I'll change to the new Apache folder, and from there to the bin folder. Here's a listing of all the files that are in this folder. You'll find a number of executables and DLLs. To start up the server, type httpd. That's the name of the executable. You'll see that the command doesn't finish. That's expected. Now I'll go to the browser, and I'll test the home page in the website by typing http://localhost. And I get back the message, it works. That's the simple verification that Apache gives you that it's fired up and ready to receive requests. I'll show you one more thing that's important to know. I'll go to my File Explorer and then to the C:\Apache folder. Within this folder, you'll find a subfolder named htdocs. This is your document root folder when working with this version of Apache, as delivered by Apache Lounge. I'll open this file in TextPad and show you the very simple HTML markup displaying the text. It works in a large font. So that's how you get started with Apache. When you're done with an Apache session, go back to that command window and press Control-C. And that means shut down the server. I'm not interested in working with it anymore. To fire it up again later, type httpd again, and you're ready to make requests and work with the Apache server. I previously described how to install Apache on Windows as an individual component by extracting the Apache files to the local hard disk and then running the httpd application as a command line application. But you can also run Apache as a Windows service. This is a bit more convenient because it can run in the background and you don't need to keep a command window open to keep it running. Once you've extracted the Apache files, go to a command prompt and make sure that you're running as administrator. On Windows 8, you can do this easily by moving the cursor to the lower left corner, right-clicking, and choosing Command Prompt Admin. And then if you see a user account control dialog, click Yes. Next, change to your Apache bin folder. This is where the Apache executables are. Just like before, type httpd, but now add two parameters, -k install. That installs Apache as a service. Notice the name of the service, Apache 2.4, without any spaces. That will become important in a moment. Now let's go to the control panel. On Windows 7, you can go through the Start menu, and on Windows 8, you can move the cursor to the lower left corner, right-click, and choose Control Panel. In the search box, type Services, and then click on View Local Services. And there's the service, Apache 2.4. Notice that it's not running yet, so let's start it up from here. I'll click the Start Service button. Once I see the running status here, I'll go to a browser and test it by typing localhost. And there's the response from the server. I'm seeing the Apache homepage. Now I'll switch back to the Services console, and I'll click the Stop button. Once the dialog is complete, I'll go back to the browser and refresh, and I get back the error message indicating that the server isn't available. You can also start and stop the server from the command line. Remember, the service name is important. It's Apache 2.4 without any spaces. But when you use it here, it's not case sensitive. So I'll type net start Apache 2.4. Once I get back to the command prompt, that means that the service has started. Then I'll come back to my browser and refresh, and there's my page. Then I'll come back to the command prompt, and I'll change start to stop. And that stops the service. I'll come back to the browser and refresh again. and I get back the error message. Now to uninstall Apache as a service, once again go back to the command prompt and this time type httpd-k uninstall. Once the command has completed, you can go back to the Services console and refresh. I'll right-click and choose Refresh, and I'll see that the service has gone away. So that's how you can work with Apache as a Windows service, by knowing some simple commands. It makes it a bit easier and more convenient to work with if you're doing a lot of development with Apache. The most recent version of PHP, as of the time of this recording, is PHP 5.6. You can get the Windows binaries for PHP from this webpage at windows.php.net/download. There are multiple packages available for each PHP version. You'll find PHP 5.6 at the top, and then PHP 5.5, 5.4, and so on. I'll only be dealing with the most recent version here. There are versions for 32-bit and 64-bit Windows, and there are both non-thread safe and thread safe versions. Even though I'm working on 64-bit Windows, I'm going to be using the 32-bit version of PHP. It matches the 32-bit version of Apache that I already installed, and most importantly, the 64-bit builds are marked as experimental. By using the 32-bit versions, you'll be using a version that's stable. Download the thread-safe version. That's the version that's compatible with Apache. I'm using this file, vc11x86 thread safe. It downloads as a zip archive file. Just as with Apache, you can install it by simply extracting it to your hard disk. I've already downloaded it to my hard disk. This zip archive does not contain a top-level folder. Its files are just children of the archive itself. So when you extract it, you'll need to create a folder to contain the files. The safest way is to right-click on the zip file and then choose Extract All and type the name of the folder that you want to extract to. I'm creating a folder called C:\PHP, and I'll click Extract. There aren't that many files, so it should just take a few moments to complete the installation. After the files have been extracted, Windows Explorer or File Explorer should open to show you the new folder. If it doesn't, open it yourself and scroll down toward the bottom. You'll find this file, php5 apache2_4.dll. This is a DLL that's used to connect to Apache at runtime. You'll need to know the name of that file and its location to connect Apache and PHP to each other. Now, to make it work all together, you'll need to add some information to your Apache configuration file. Go to your Apache installation folder. I installed Apache to C:\Apache. Then go to the conf folder. That's where your configuration files are. Then open the file httpd.conf in any text editor, and then scroll down all the way to the bottom. I'll be adding 3 new directives to this file. Now it takes a bit of typing, so to make this a little bit easier, I've included a file in the exercise files. I'll go to the exercise files folder, then to the Apache subfolder, and I'll open this file. Then I'll select and copy all 3 lines, and then I'll go back to my httpd configuration file, and I'll paste those lines into place at the bottom of the file. There are 3 directives. The load module directive loads that DLL I described. Notice that the name and location of the DLL are included. If you installed Apache somewhere else on your hard disk, change this line to match your installation folder. The add handler directive says that when a file with the .php file extension is requested, this is its MIME type. This is how we report to the browser what's being processed on the server. And finally, php-ini-dir is a directive that says where the php.ini configuration file is stored. This is very important. It's how you configure PHP, and Apache needs to know where it is. Once again, I've included the name of the folder. I'm going to conform those two lines so they both use C in uppercase, but they'll work either way. Notice I don't have a trailing slash, and I've also used a / instead of a backslash in this directive. Now, that file, php.ini, isn't created for you automatically in PHP 5.6. You have to create it yourself. But rather than typing it from scratch, we're going to use an existing version. I'll go to my /PHP folder, and I'll scroll down a bit, and I'll see that there are two ini files here. One is called php.ini development, and the other is called php.ini production. I'm going to use the development version. It has settings that are appropriate for development on a local computer. I'll copy and paste the file with Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V. Then I'll go to the new version and I'll name it php.ini. This is the required name of the PHP configuration file. On most Windows computers, when you do this, the .ini extension will be hidden by default, but it's there. If you click on the file and then press Alt-Enter to look at the file properties, you'll see that the file type is configuration settings with an extension of .ini. Now I'm finally ready to test. I'll need a simple PHP script, and I've provided it in the free exercise files that accompany the course. It's in the PHP subfolder, and it's named phpinfo.php. Once again, I'll look at the properties and verify the PHP file extension. Then I'll open the file in a text editor. It has a simple PHP command, phpinfo. This command outputs information about the current PHP installation. I'll close the text editor, then I'll copy the file to the clipboard, and then I'll go back to my Apache folder. And from there, I'll go to htdocs. This is my document root folder when working with the individual Windows installation. And I'll paste that phpinfo.php file into place. So all my configurations are done, and I've placed a PHP script that I can use to test. Now, I need to make sure that Apache is running. If you're running from a command prompt like I am, go there now. And if you're already running Apache, press Ctrl-C to stop it. And then type httpd to start it up again. If you're running Apache as a Windows service, go to the Control panel and restart it from there. Then go to a browser and navigate to the URL localhost/phpinfo.php. And you should see this output. There's a lot of information here, but most importantly, take a look at your loaded configuration file and verify that it displays as :php\php.ini. You'll also see a setting called configuration file path, but you can ignore that. If you see this under loaded configuration file, then you know that that's the initialization file that you're using for your copy of PHP. So if that's all working, you're ready to go to the next step, installing MySQL. MySQL is an open source product, and there's a community edition that's free. You can download it from www.mysql.com/downloads. Go down toward the bottom of the page and find the label for MySQL Community Edition, and click the link, and then click the link for MySQL Community Server. From there, scroll down a little bit further, and you'll see this link to download the MSI installer. Click that link. And now you're on the page where you can download an installer for the most recent version of MySQL. As of the time of this recording, that's MySQL 5.6. There's only a 32-bit installer here. Use the same version regardless of whether you're using 32 or 64-bit Windows. There are two versions here: a web version, where you have a very small installer package and then everything will be downloaded as it's needed, or a full-size package that has everything you need. I've already downloaded the full-size package to my desktop, and I'll run it from here. It runs as a Windows installer program. After accepting any user account control dialogues that pop up, you'll be taken to a license agreement screen. If you agree to its terms, accept it, and go to the next screen. Here, you can decide what you need. You can either do a very minimal installation by selecting Server Only, or you can choose a full installation, or choose the one at the top, which I like, called Developer Default. This includes MySQL Server, MySQL Workbench, a graphical user interface application that lets you manage your server, and a number of useful connectors for various languages and platforms. After selecting the setup type, I'll click Next, and then I'm asked for a couple of configuration details. You need to provide two directories, an installation directory and a data directory. I'm going to set my installation directory to /MySQL, and then my data directory to /MySQL/data. After pressing the tab, that error indicating that the directory already existed goes away, although you might not have seen that warning on your system if you've never installed MySQL previously. On this screen, you'll see warnings if you don't have any prerequisite technologies for certain of these components. On my system, I'm being warned that I don't have the right components for MySQL for Excel or the MySQL connector for Python. I'm not using either of those technologies, so I'm going to ignore these warnings and click Next. And when the Confirm dialog pops up, I'll click Yes to say, yeah, this is okay. And now I'm ready for the installation. I'll be installing quite a few components, so it'll take a little bit of time to copy everything to the hard disk. I'll click Execute, and off we go. This installation can take upwards of 4 or 5 minutes, so perhaps pause this video, and when your installation is complete, you can continue. After the files have been copied over to your hard disk and installed, go to the next screen, and you'll see a product configuration information page. There are 2 steps for configuration: configuring the MySQL server and configuring samples and examples. Click Next. On this screen, you're asked what kind of configuration you'll be using and how you want to connect. I recommend accepting all of the defaults on this screen, especially the port number of 3306. That's the standard port number for MySQL. Click Next again. Now you're asked for a MySQL root password. Type a password that you'll remember. Because you're developing on your own local system, it doesn't necessarily have to be a strong password, so I've typed simply password. I type it twice, and I'm ready to continue. If you like, you can also set up additional user accounts at this point, but you'll also be able to do that later. I'll click Next, and now I'm configuring MySQL as a Windows service. You can set the Windows service name to anything you like. I'm going to set it as simply MySQL. And I'll leave the option selected to start the server at System Startup. And I'll also accept the default for the user account I'm running MySQL on, the standard system account. I'll click Next, and now I'm ready to apply the server configuration. I'll click Execute, and after just a few moments, I see a success message. I'll click Finish, and now I'm ready to configure the samples and examples. I'll click Next, and I'm asked here to check my user credentials. I'll click the Check button, and my credentials are accepted, and then I'll click Next and click Execute. And again, It takes just a few moments to complete the configuration. Once I see the success message, I'll click Finish. And then I'll click Next again, and notice that I have an option selected to start MySQL Workbench after setup. I'll leave that checked, and I'll click Finish, and now the installer is done. If you didn't see the option to start MySQL Workbench on your computer, you should be able to start it from the Windows Start menu or Start screen. It immediately opens MySQL Workbench, the graphical interface for managing your MySQL installation. I'll click the button to open a connection to my local instance of MySQL. I'll type the password that I set, and I'll click OK. And if everything works correctly, I should see that I'm now connected. Because MySQL is installed as a Windows service, you can manage it from the Windows Control Panel. I'll go to the Control Panel and type Services. Then I'll click on View Local Services, and then I'll click into the list and type MY, and there's my service. And it's named, as I requested, MySQL. From here, you can stop the service, you can restart it, and you can manage whether it starts up automatically when you start your computer. So those are the steps for installing MySQL as an individual component on Windows. There's one more important thing to know about, and that's how to uninstall it if you want to use another configuration for Apache, MySQL, and PHP on the same computer. If you want to remove the individual components from Windows, uninstalling Apache and PHP are pretty straightforward. We extracted them from zip files, so you just need to delete them. If you were running PHP as a Windows service, you would uninstall that first, but I already showed how to do that. But MySQL is another story. If you want to uninstall MySQL, your first impulse might be to go to the Control Panel and choose Uninstall a Program, and then look for MySQL. And you could do it this way, but look at how many different programs are installed. You have the MySQL server, you have MySQL Workbench, and all of the connectors. And if you try to uninstall from here, you'll find that it takes a lot of time. But notice that the MySQL installer is still there. It's installed as its own application, and that's because it knows how to uninstall all this at the same time. So I'm going to close the Control Panel, and then on Windows 8, I'll go to the Start screen, and I'll type MySQL. And I'll go to the MySQL installer. As before, if I see User Account Control dialogues, I'll click Yes. And I come to this screen that shows me all of the MySQL components that are installed. And over here, I'll click Remove. And then up here, I'll check the checkbox. And that selects everything. When I click Execute, I'll be uninstalling the MySQL server, MySQL Workbench, and everything else. I'm not going to go through this process right now, but you'll find that there are no options from this point forward. Just follow the prompts. One of the prompts you'll see asks you whether you want to uninstall the installer itself. If you leave that checked at the end of the process, you'll need to restart your computer. You'll see very clear prompts to this effect. Just follow the prompts from this point forward, and you'll be ready to try a completely different distribution of Apache, MySQL, and PHP.